We are taught to fear the narcissist. Society paints them as unstoppable predators, masters of manipulation who move through the world destroying lives and leaving a trail of psychological wreckage in their wake. When you are caught in their web, they seem infinitely powerful. They warp reality, they dictate your emotions, and they project an aura of absolute, untouchable superiority. But what if I told you that this entire projection is a lie? What if I told you that the narcissist is not a fortress of strength, but a fragile, desperate illusion held together by a single, highly exploitable weakness? That weakness is their ego. To the average person, the ego is simply a sense of self-esteem, but to the narcissist, the ego is a matter of life and death. It is a fabricated, artificial construct, a mask they wear to hide a deep, terrifying abyss of internal shame and emptiness. They do not generate their own self-worth. They are psychological parasites, entirely dependent on extracting narcissistic supply from the outside world. They need your fear, your admiration, your tears, and your frustration just to survive another day. When you understand this, the power dynamic fundamentally shifts. You realize that you are not fighting a mastermind, you are fighting a terrified child wearing a monster costume. Over 5 centuries ago, Niccolo Machiavelli penned The Prince, a masterclass in the ruthless mechanics of power. Machiavellian philosophy strips away emotion, morality, and fear, leaving only cold, mathematical strategy. A Machiavellian mind does not look at a screaming, manipulating narcissist and feel intimidated. The Machiavellian mind looks at them and sees a target rich with vulnerabilities. It sees an opponent who is so completely blinded by their own grandiosity that they cannot even see the trap being laid beneath their feet. The greatest mistake you can make when dealing with a narcissist is trying to fight them with empathy, logic, or emotion. If you try to heal them, they will drain you. If you try to debate them, they will gaslight you. If you show them your pain, they will weaponize it. You cannot defeat a dark triad personality by playing by the rules of the light. To break their hold over you, you must step into the shadows. You must adopt the cold, calculating architecture of Machiavellian dark psychology. We are not talking about petty revenge. We are talking about the systematic, surgical dismantling of the narcissist's false reality. We are going to explore how to starve their parasitic ego, how to turn their own paranoid projections against them, and how to use strategic silence and calculated unpredictability to shatter their illusion of control. By the end of this breakdown, you will no longer be the prey. You will possess the exact psychological blueprint required to completely deconstruct the narcissist's ego, leaving them powerless, disoriented, and entirely irrelevant to your reality. The game they forced you to play is about to end. It is time to flip the board. To destroy an enemy, a master strategist does not attack them where they are strongest. They attack their supply lines. In the realm of Machiavellian dark psychology, the narcissist's supply line is your emotion. They are not self-sustaining entities. A narcissist is a psychological black hole that must constantly consume external validation to keep their fragile, fabricated ego from collapsing inward upon itself. In psychology, this validation is known as narcissistic supply. Most people fundamentally misunderstand what this supply actually is. They believe a narcissist only wants praise, admiration, and obedience. But to a dark triad personality, negative supply is just as intoxicating as positive supply. Your anger, your tears, your desperate attempts to defend your character, the long, exhausted paragraphs you send trying to explain your side, all of it is pure, high-grade fuel for their ego. When you scream at a narcissist, you are not punishing them. You are proving to them that they possess the godlike power to completely destabilize your reality. You are feeding the exact monster you are trying to kill. Niccolò Machiavelli understood the brutal mechanics of a siege. When a fortress is heavily fortified, you do not waste your resources charging the front gates. You surround the fortress, cut off the food, cut off the water, and wait for the enemy to starve themselves into submission. This is the starvation protocol. It is the cold, calculated execution of absolute emotional withdrawal. To dismantle a narcissist's ego, you must become a barren wasteland where their provocations go to die. Psychologists often refer to this as the gray rock method, but the Machiavellian application takes it a step further. You do not just become boring, you become a psychological void. When the narcissist launches a calculated attack, an insult, a covert smear, a guilt trip designed specifically to hit your deepest insecurity, they are sending out a sonar ping. They are waiting for your emotional explosion to bounce back, confirming their power. The starvation protocol dictates that you absorb the ping and return absolutely nothing. You strip your face of all expression. You strip your voice of all inflection. You look them dead in the eye, and you offer a response so utterly devoid of energy that it causes their manipulative machinery to short-circuit. Okay, I understand you feel that way. That is an interesting perspective. And then you stop talking. You let the silence stretch out, heavy and suffocating. You do not defend yourself. You do not counterattack. You simply observe them with the clinical, detached curiosity of a scientist watching a frantic insect trapped inside a glass jar. This is a devastating psychological blow. A narcissist's entire identity is built on their ability to puppet their environment. When they press the button that has always made you cry or scream, and suddenly the machine does not work, they experience a profound existential terror. The mask slips. The ego begins to starve immediately. Understand this. They will escalate. When the starvation protocol begins, the narcissist will panic. They will throw more vicious insults, or they might suddenly switch to fake affection, desperate to see if the love bombing button still works. Psychologists call this an extinction burst. But if you hold the line, if you maintain the cold, unyielding architecture of your detachment, their ego will begin to cannibalize itself. A narcissist cannot survive in a void. If you absolutely refuse to feed them, they have no choice but to abandon the siege and look for weaker prey. You do not defeat a narcissist by winning the argument. You defeat them by completely removing their reason to exist in your reality. A narcissist's greatest vulnerability is not their arrogance. It is their profound, inescapable paranoia. Beneath the mask of absolute superiority, a dark triad personality lives in a constant state of terror. They know, on a deep subconscious level, that they are frauds. They know their empire is built on lies, manipulation, and stolen energy. Because they operate with such ruthless deception, they are chronically paranoid that everyone else is doing the exact same thing to them. And this paranoia forces them to make a fatal strategic error. They hand you their entire playbook, completely by accident. In psychology, this mechanism is known as projection. A narcissist cannot process their own toxicity, shame, or guilt. It would instantly shatter their fragile ego. So, they subconsciously vomit those traits onto you. When a toxic partner suddenly accuses you of being unfaithful out of nowhere, they are confessing their own infidelity. When a Machiavellian coworker accuses you of plotting against them, they are revealing exactly what they are doing to you. Every bizarre, unfounded accusation a narcissist throws at you is not an attack. It is a psychological confession. The average person, blinded by the injustice of the accusation, reacts with desperate defense. They exhaust themselves trying to prove their innocence to a judge who has already rigged the trial. But the Machiavellian mind does something entirely different. The Machiavellian mind does not defend. It becomes a mirror. When you understand that every accusation is a confession, you possess the ultimate intelligence advantage. You no longer have to guess what the predator is planning. They are literally screaming their strategy right into your face. To destroy their ego, you must weaponize this paranoia against them. When they launch a wild projection, do not argue the facts. Instead, calmly and clinically address the psychology behind their attack. If they accuse you of being manipulative, look them in the eye and say, "It is fascinating that your mind immediately goes to manipulation." If they accuse you of lying, simply smile coldly and reply, "You seem to have a very deep fear of deception today." You do not raise your voice. You do not defend your character. You simply take their psychological garbage and gently slide it right back across the table to them. This response induces absolute terror in the narcissist. You are subtly communicating to them that their mask has completely fallen off. You are letting them know that you see exactly who they are, and more importantly, that their attempts to manipulate your reality have failed spectacularly. Because they are deeply paranoid, they will begin to spiral. They will wonder how much you actually know. They will start to second-guess their own lies. By simply acting as a calm, reflective surface, you force the narcissist to fight their own shadow. And because they despise their true selves more than anything else in the world, fighting their own reflection will exhaust them, disorient them, and ultimately break their fabricated reality into pieces. If there is one thing a narcissist worships above all else, it is control. Their entire psychological architecture is built on the delusion that they are the grand master of the board, and you are simply a pawn that moves exactly when and where they dictate. To maintain this delusion, they study you. From the very beginning of the relationship, whether it is romantic, professional, or familial, a dark triad personality maps your emotional triggers with terrifying precision. They know exactly what to say to make you feel guilty. They know which buttons to push to make you raise your voice. They know how long they have to give you the silent treatment before you break down and apologize for something you did not even do. You have become a perfectly predictable algorithm to them. And as long as you are predictable, their ego is safe. They feel omnipotent. To destroy that ego, you must introduce a virus into their algorithm. You must master the dark art of calculated unpredictability. In Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, Law 17 states, "Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability." Greene understood that human beings are creatures of habit. When someone acts consistently, we feel safe because we feel we can anticipate their next move. But when a person suddenly breaks their established pattern, it induces a primal sense of anxiety. We no longer know the rules of the game. To a narcissist, this anxiety is magnified 1,000 times over. Because their entire sense of self-worth relies on controlling you, Your unpredictability does not just make them nervous, it completely shatters their reality. How do you weaponize this? You systematically break every single rule they have written for you. If they are used to you passionately defending yourself when they accuse you of being selfish, the next time they do it, you simply shrug, say, maybe, and walk out of the room. If they expect you to be devastated by their sudden withdrawal of affection, you use that time to visibly thrive, going out, networking, and showing absolutely zero concern for their absence. If they try to bait you into a screaming match, you respond in a whisper. If they expect a long, emotional text message, you reply with a single thumbs up emoji. You do not act out of anger or spite. You act out of cold, deliberate strategy. You are intentionally misaligning their gears. When you suddenly stop playing the role they assign to you, the narcissist experiences a total loss of equilibrium. The levers they have pulled 100 times before suddenly do not work. The buttons they press do not trigger the explosion they need. Their illusion of control evaporates instantly. This loss of control forces the narcissist into a state of psychological panic. Because they cannot process the idea that you are independent of them, they will scramble to regain dominance. They will become erratic. They will make careless mistakes. They will expose their toxicity to others because their mask is slipping under the sheer terror of losing their grip on you. Calculated unpredictability is not about being chaotic or unstable. It is about becoming an enigma. It is about realizing that your predictability was the very chain that bound you to their abuse. When you break the pattern, you break the chain. You leave the manipulator grasping at thin air, desperately trying to control a ghost that no longer exists in their matrix. In the predictable, exhausting cycle of dark triad manipulation, there are 3 distinct phases: the love bombing, the devaluation, and finally, the discard. The discard is the narcissist's ultimate weapon of dominance. When they realize that your emotional supply is running low, or when they have secured a new, more gullible target, they will drop you. But they do not just walk away. A toxic individual engineers the discard to be as brutal, sudden, and confusing as possible. They want you to beg. They want you to ask for closure. They want to leave you questioning your own worth, because your total devastation is the final, supreme confirmation of their power. They need to know they broke you. To the Machiavellian mind, this is entirely unacceptable. In the game of power, whoever controls the ending controls the entire reality. To completely shatter a narcissist's ego, you must steal the power of the ending. You must master the ultimate discard. There are 2 ways this plays out on the chessboard, and both are completely devastating to the predator. The first is the preemptive strike. When you study Machiavellian strategy, your eyes open to the patterns. If you recognize the cycle, if you see the devaluation phase beginning and the disrespect escalating, you do not wait for their axe to fall. You do not try to fix the dynamic. You do not offer deep, heartfelt conversations to a psychological parasite. You simply gather your energy, and you vanish. No grand speeches, no final arguments, no long texts explaining why you are leaving. You execute a flawless, silent, and absolute exit. When you leave a narcissist before they are ready to discard you, you inflict a mortal wound to their fabricated ego. You have rejected them before they could reject you. You have stolen their grand finale. They are left standing on a stage with no audience, holding a script that is suddenly completely useless. Because they view themselves as a godlike figure in your life, the reality that you could simply walk away, That you recognized their toxicity and chose to discard them is a reality their mind literally cannot process. It breaks them. The second scenario is when they initiate the discard first. They drop the bomb. They tell you it is over, expecting you to shatter into a million pieces and plead for a second chance. This is where your Machiavellian armor must be impenetrable. When they deliver the final blow, you do not cry. You do not ask why. You look at them with a mild, almost bored expression, and you simply agree. You're right. This has run its course. Goodbye. And then you turn your back and you close the door permanently. The ultimate discard is not necessarily about who says the words. It is about who holds the power in the aftermath. The narcissist's ego relies entirely on you chasing them. They rely on the idea that they will live rent-free in your mind forever, and that you will spend years agonizing over the loss. When you accept their discard with absolute, chilling apathy, you rob them of their victory. You turn their ultimate weapon into a completely meaningless event. Closure is a myth invented by people who cannot accept reality. The Machiavellian mind does not need closure from a predator. The closure is the realization that the parasite has finally detached. By executing the ultimate discard, you ensure that the narcissist does not leave you destroyed. You simply drop them, like a heavy, useless weight you no longer wish to carry. The final stage of destroying a narcissist's ego has absolutely nothing to do with the narcissist. Once you have starved their supply, mirrored their paranoia, shattered their predictable algorithms, and executed the ultimate discard, the predator will be gone. They will have retreated into the shadows to find an easier target, their fabricated reality completely fractured by your cold, Machiavellian detachment. But the battlefield they leave behind is your mind. The average person survives a narcissistic encounter and desperately tries to return to who they were before the abuse. They want to go back to being the endlessly forgiving, overly empathetic, trusting soul they used to be. They view the Machiavellian armor they had to wear as a temporary necessity, something to be discarded the moment the threat is gone. This is a fatal error. If you return to the exact same psychological architecture you had before, you are simply sending out a beacon for the next predator. To complete the Machiavellian transformation, you must embrace the final phase, the Iron Fortress. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler builds fortresses not just to defend against current enemies, but to deter future ones. The trauma you experienced at the hands of a dark triad personality was the price of your education. You paid for it with your peace, your energy, and your tears. Do not waste that expensive education by remaining naive. You must take the cold logic, the strategic detachment, and the unyielding boundaries you used to defeat them, and you must permanently integrate them into your personality. You are no longer the prey. You have touched the dark side of human psychology, and you have learned how to use it to protect the light. Building the Iron Fortress means accepting that not everyone deserves your empathy. Empathy is a highly valuable, finite currency, and you must become completely ruthless about how you spend it. From this day forward, your trust is no longer a default setting. It is a high security clearance that must be earned through consistent, undeniable proof of character. When you encounter new people, you will no longer look at them through the rose-colored glasses of your own potential. You will look at them with the calm, calculating gaze of the chessboard paradigm. You will watch how they handle the word no. You will observe how they speak about others when they think no one is listening. You will test their reactions to your boundaries. And the moment, the absolute split second, you detect the subtle, creeping signs of a manipulator testing your defenses, you will not hesitate. You will not argue. You will simply drop the heavy iron gates of your fortress and lock them out completely. The narcissist wanted to destroy you. They wanted to reduce you to an exhausted, compliant shadow. But by forcing you into the dark, they unwittingly handed you the exact tools you needed to become untouchable. They thought they were breaking a victim, but instead, they forged a strategist. You have learned the art of the void. You have learned the power of the silent checkmate. You have looked into the abyss of the narcissistic ego and watched it starve. The game of power never stops, but your role as the victim has permanently ended. Let the predators roam outside your walls. Let them play their pathetic, exhausting games with people who still believe in illusions. You live in reality now. And in reality, your peace is an empire. Your mind is a fortress, and your logic is absolute. Welcome to the Iron Fortress. If you are ready to continue mastering the dark side of human psychology and permanently immunize yourself against manipulation, subscribe to Mindcipher. We will continue to decode the shadow self and the strategies of the elite. Stay cold, stay calculating, and never surrender the board.